Hello everyone, hello again, Colin Henderson here. Now, as promised in my last video, I will be giving you my update from the Household Recycling Centre, or to the casual user, the tip. So, yesterday was Saturday, and yes, we all know what that means, weekend tip users. Now, for the regulars like me, Saturday is somewhat of a black mark on the calendar. I actually know some friends, well, not friends, but people who avoid Saturdays like the plague, even for early morning drop-offs. This is mainly because, and I don't want to judge, but these weekenders, they're not your regulars, okay? They've not been during the week like you or I would. They've just saved up all the rubbish for one day, and most of the time, they're completely unaware of the tip rules and etiquette. So for me, Saturday is all about correcting their mistakes, because if it wasn't for helpful Samaritans like myself, they'd never learn. So, I got down there around 7:30 in the morning. I like to give the tip marshal a hand setting up. He's a good friend of mine named Logan. He doesn't talk much, doesn't talk to me much at all actually, but I enjoy friends like that, a bit of peace and quiet. Unfortunately, there'd been a big pile up in Bay 3, cardboard, from the Friday night disposals, so Logan was on digger duty getting the unit cleared. I must say I was very jealous, not so much about using the digger, but more of his high-vis jacket. Oh, bright orange it is, oh, fluorescent orange, and with a neon silver trim. I adore it, I really do. You know, even so much so, I've asked my wife Hilary to put it on the Christmas list, along of course with some pat testing equipment. I'm very excited. Now, of course, the safety rules state that you must wear a high-vis jacket if you are in the lower level area. Now, there's a big sign by the gate that says, no high-vis, no work. And I love that. I absolutely love it. I think it's a brilliant sign. It's concise and it's relevant, okay? Unlike a lot of signs you see nowadays. I think, digressing slightly, my top three signs would be, well, that one that I've just mentioned, danger of death, and of course the classic, no smoking. Right, anyway, Logan was cracking on, so I parked up in the waiting area. Now, as a separate note, I keep writing to the council asking them to extend the waiting area into a full, proper car park for people like me who just want to watch the other people use the recycling centre. My dream, actually, is for tips across the country to have proper viewing galleries, along with tea-making facilities. I actually wrote a letter to the sanitation department about it, but the idea got lost in translation. For some reason, they thought I was trying to be humorous. Bunch of idiots. But I digress. I only had to wait 5 minutes for the first early bird. Okay, and I tell you, this bloke drives up, car full of black bin bags, and he parks up in Bay 4. Alarm bells are ringing straight away. Bay 4 is for wood and timber. Why would you put those in black bin bags? I'm being rhetorical, of course, but you wouldn't. He gets out, and instantly I'm seeing leaves and I'm seeing twigs poking out at the top of his bin bags. I immediately turn the shipping forecast to mute. We could have a problem here. Now, I know what you're saying. Oh, he thinks twigs and branches count as wood waste. Quick, stop him, Colin. Calm down. Let's try not to jump to any conclusions. Hopefully, he'll walk over to the bay and upon closer inspection see the sign saying industrial and household wood only. Then he'll realise his mistake, probably have a quiet chuckle to himself before driving forward and reversing into Bay 6, garden waste. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't do that. Do you know what he does when he sees the sign? Nothing. He didn't even stop to read it. At this point, I put my thermos flask in my drinks holder, I grabbed my self-printed tip user pamphlet from the glove box, and I'm ready to pounce. Hang on though, he's not putting his garden waste in there. He's stopped for a cautionary look into the unit. I think he's realised he's in the wrong bay. Calm has been restored. Until he goes and walks 2 bays over to garden waste. I'm out of the car in a flash. I barely checked my wing mirror for pedestrians, and I certainly didn't check my blind spot. Careless, I know, but grant me this mistake. I was attempting to stop what could have been a serious injury. Now, if you're confused, for the uninitiated, crossing the bays is when somebody parks in a space, say Bay 4, and then walks to an adjacent or neighbouring Bay, 7 for example, to dispose of their waste. Now, this is not only inefficient, but highly dangerous and can lead to serious injury or death, in my opinion. Now, look, when it comes to crossing the bays, Logan and I, we've had this conversation time and time again. He says it's simply an unwritten rule of the tip. Well, I simply say, I don't care if it's written or unwritten, a rule is a rule. So, at this point, I feel I need to intervene. Logan's back at the post by now, so I shout over, Logan, Bay Crosser, Unit 4. And he just shrugs and carries on reading his racing post. It's become somewhat of an unspoken code between us that if he does that, he's acutely concerned about the problem, but he trusts me to resolve it. So I wander over to your man, and as I'm doing so, guess what this absolute joker does? He gets his bin bag out, and look, don't get me wrong, you know, I don't mind garden waste going in a bin bag, you know, I'm not a Jobsworth. I appreciate that your amateur users, they won't have your green Ziploc bags like I do, but this man, do you know what he does? He gets the black bin bag full of garden waste, and he just throws it straight into the skip. Bin bag and all, I know, I'm as aghast as you are. This is the second time he's ignored a very clearly marked sign. Garden waste only. Is a bin bag garden waste? No. No, it's not. Now, obviously I'm fuming at this point, but I manage to remain calm. You've got to remember, with your casual tip users, it's usually ignorance rather than malice. So I politely pointed out the error of his ways, I mentioned the bay crossing, I mentioned the bin bag. I was very calm, very polite, simply matter of fact. You know, after I'm finished explaining, you know what he says to me? Do you work here? I don't see how that's relevant, I reply. I'm pointing out your infractions in the face of clear tip bylaws. I don't have to work here to do that. He then says, whatever, grabs his last bag and tips it in, keeping hold of the bag this time. So a small victory there for me. When he's finished, he turns and says sarcastically, happy now? Well, I said, I'll be happy when you drive your car to the correct bay and don't dump your bin bags. He just shook his head. You know, I cannot abide rudeness of this sort. I mean, for goodness sake, don't shoot the messenger. I don't enjoy having to go over and tell people off, but I'm doing it for everyone's safety. I made that point clear to him before he got in his car. I told him one of my favourite tip fables, or tables as I like to call them. It's a scenario that I've imagined in my head many times, but it could very easily happen in real life. So, here we go. Let's imagine a man, a different man, is carrying a bag of leaves from his car to bay 6. He's parked up at the correct bay, 6, and there's a short walk to the disposal unit. But as he starts his journey, someone else, who's parked in bay 7, is thinking, oh, I don't want to have to wait for them to finish before I move my car to the allotted bay parking point. I'll just cross the bays. So, this other man's there. He's about to throw out an old mini disc player, which has sharp edges due to his dog chewing on it. He walks from bay 7 to bay 6, crossing the bays, on his phone, playing Facebooks or whatever it is, not looking where he's going. Meanwhile, our man at bay 6 is walking towards the unit, visibility restricted by the bin bag of garden leaves. Do you know what happens? They collide. Massive collision. The bin bag of leaves flies into the air, causing it to split open. A shower of leaves rain down on them. Meanwhile, the man who was carrying the bag moans out in pain. He's been impaled on the chewed mini disc player. Because he's moaning in pain, his mouth is wide open. A leaf falls in, chokes to death. Okay? All because somebody couldn't wait the 2 minutes to drive to the correct bay. Something to think about. Now, I did have to shout the last few lines of this cautionary tale as the man I'd been dealing with got into his car and started driving off. But he definitely heard the end though, because his window was open. He was sticking his middle finger up at me, you see. Ipso facto, I helped an amateur tip user and potentially, well, I think definitely saved his life. Right, that's it for the tip report this week. Next time I'll be logging more HR grievances and boy oh boy have I got some treats for you. CBG credit has been awash with corruption. Meanwhile though, I do believe I've got to go because Hillary looks like she's defrosting some turkey breasts and it doesn't look too good. I need to check the rate of thawing as to avoid food poisoning, so I better go. Regards, Colin Henderson.